it's a lot more substantially believable.
Thanks for your honesty. Now we're getting to the real issue, which has nothing to do with history. It has to do with a philosophical presupposition, which is there a supernatural God who performs miracles, or is there no supernatural God who performs miracles? And obviously, if there's no supernatural God, then miracles are impossible. You're right. But let's be honest, it's not an issue of history, it's an issue of philosophy.
Talks about a census. That census absolutely never happened. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you go back to your hometown to do a census? That would be completely economically disruptive. Also, King Herod died before this alleged time Jesus was born.
Really? What's the alleged time Jesus was born?
0 BC. Or year zero.
That's a mistake that the monk made who put the calendar together. You're absolutely correct.
But
Jesus was born in 5 or 4 BC. The monk who put together our calendar made a mistake. So good history.
But the census never happened, though.
Oh, the census never happened? Of course it did.
No, the census
Censuses were taken by the Roman Empire. Yes, they were taken.
But there wasn't one recorded that year.
Well, what was the year Christ was born?
Any time of that year.
He wasn't born in 0.
It doesn't matter. No, I'm talking about any of that time.
Yes, it does matter.
Like, think about the census. Why would you go back to your hometown for a census? That doesn't even make any sense.
Of course it makes sense. If the law of the land is you are to be numbered in your hometown, then you go back to your hometown to be numbered.
No, but think about it for a second. The point of the census is to know where people are living now, not where people were born.
Well, that's a great bias that you and I might have living in our culture. But guess what? This is a culture that existed 2,000 years ago called Roman culture.
Okay.
All right, a little different from American culture. And I think it's rather culturally arrogant for me to say, oh, the Romans couldn't take that type of census 2,000 years ago. Give me a break. The Romans didn't do it the American way, guys, just in case you're wondering.
That kind of census would have destroyed the economy.
No, it wouldn't have destroyed the economy.
Yes, it would, because people aren't working if they're going back to their hometowns hundreds of miles away.
People usually didn't live hundreds of miles away from their hometown in that day, sir. There were no airplanes. There were no automobiles.
What if you're a month walks away, a month trip away? That's still going to be extremely economically disruptive.
Yeah, very few people lived that far away from the place they were born in that time. Just study the culture. You didn't grow up 2,000 years ago in a town and then move to the opposite side of the Roman Empire to live your life. There was not that kind of communication and travel.
It still doesn't make any sense. Why would a census care about where you used to live and not where you actually live?
I don't have the faintest idea. What matter? What does it matter?
Why is there no record of the census from an outside secular source?
There are records of censuses from outside sources.
In that time, and also, there is no record outside of the Bible of Herod trying to kill a bunch of babies. That would have definitely been written down.
How small was Bethlehem? Very small town. How many babies did Herod kill? Very small number. You're trying to convince me that the Roman Empire, that committed incredible war atrocities, is going to record a few babies slaughtered in Bethlehem? Give me a break. We're not going to do that.
The Romans wrote pretty much everything down. That's why we know so much about them.
Who did?
The Romans.
No, they did not write everything down.
They wrote everything down.
No, they did not.
I studied this. They wrote so much down.
I've had to study it also.
Okay.
No, they did not write everything down. Nobody writes everything down. And when you go back to ancient history, sir, you have an even sparser historical record.
Okay. Okay, let's move on from that. Here's another. Are you trying to argue the Old Testament is historically accurate too?
That was not what we were talking about. This lady raised a question. I was answering about the New Testament.
What are you?
Do you believe the Old Testament is literally true?
Sir, I read everything literally, which means I respect literary style and I read in context.
No.
I read fairy tale literally as fairy tale. I read biology literally as biology. I read historical narrative literally as historical narrative. And if this man uses allegory to interpret him, I respect his right to use allegory or metaphor or simile.
Do you believe that the Bible is literally true? That's what I'm asking. It is historically accurate to 100% or whatever percent.
I am convinced the Quran is very, very historically accurate. I am convinced that the Bible is very historically accurate. I am convinced that the teachings of Siddhartha Gautama Buddha have been accurately preserved. And if you want to find out what Siddhartha Gautama Buddha taught, you'd be very wise to read the teachings of Siddhartha.
But that's not what I asked you. Do you?
Yes, it is what you asked me.
Are you a biblical literalist? That's what I'm asking. Do you believe that the Word of God is 100% historically accurate? You're not answering my question.
Yes, I am. What you should be saying is, I'm not fitting into the stereotype that you have in your head. You're right, I'm not. Instead, I'm trying to explain myself a little more clearly than the stereotype that you have in your head of a literalist.
I'm just asking.
No, I'm not a literalist as you define literalism. And I'm outlining to you how any thinking person needs to learn to interpret any text. You've got to learn to respect literary style. If you interpret a biology textbook the same way you interpret the poem of John Donne or Robert Blake, you will flunk. You better learn to distinguish between a poem, an historical narrative, and a scientific text. And if you don't learn to distinguish between those three different literary styles, you will flunk.
Okay, here, let me put it another way.
Good.
Do you believe Noah's flood happened as described in the Bible?
Yes, I believe Noah's flood happened as described in the Bible. I am not convinced that Genesis insists that there was a universal flood, in the same way that when the Apostle Paul says, I preach the gospel to the whole earth, that doesn't mean he went to Australia and South America. He went to the whole known world around the Mediterranean of that day. Okay? So I don't know the extent of the flood at the time of Noah. But have there been incredible floods? All you got to do, sir, is read the Gilgamesh epic. And from another culture, you've got a very clear description of a massive flood.
Okay.
How massive was it? I don't know. And guess what? The Bible does not give the diameter of the floodwaters. Doesn't do that.
I'm trying to gauge your historical, what kind of historicity you believe in. Do you believe the Exodus happened as described in the Bible?
Yes.
Well, there's no evidence for that.
Well, how much evidence do you expect from a group of people who walk through the desert? You honestly think that 3,000 years after it occurred, we're going to have a bunch of artifacts about a group of people passing through a desert?
There's 1.5 million of them. Yes, we would.
No, we would not.
Yes,
they were nomadic.
The desert is the best preservation of ancient artifacts.
And how much archaeological evidence do we have for the teepees that Native Americans
had? You don't
had?
have to. People wrote it down because they saw them.
Come on, sir. You got to start thinking. You're not going to have a lot of archaeological evidence from nomads. Nomads traveled. They didn't build pyramids. Now, we got pyramids because the Egyptians lived in Egypt and they built the pyramids. Profound archaeological evidence. When you've got nomads traveling about all over the place, for you to demand a bunch of archaeological evidence, like pottery or whatever, that's highly naive.
How do you get lost in the desert for 40 years? There are millions of people living in that part of the world. Why did none of them ask for directions? And why did nobody write a 1.5 million, even notice a 1.5 million people just crossing the desert aimlessly?
Where on earth does the Bible say that it was 1.5 million?
It says it in the text.
No, it does not.
Yes, it does.
It doesn't say 1.5 million people were part of the Exodus.
Even if it's like 100,000, you can't just do that.
Well, that's a good qualification there. You went from 1.5 million to 100,000.
No, even if they're it doesn't matter. This kind of scale, people would have noticed. And plus, it's only 300 miles from Memphis, Egypt, to freaking Jerusalem. If you put they were walking in a straight line, the first person would have gotten to Israel before the last person even left.
Sir, your hyper-skepticism is totally out of touch with reality. You cannot deal with anything from history with the type of hyper-skepticism you have. For you to demand that either 1.5 million or 100,000 people left artifacts that 3,000 years later we can dig up on their nomadic trip.
Yes,
you've got to be kidding me, sir. That is so hyper-skeptical, it's scary.
Okay, but where it happened, why did nobody else write them down when they were wandering around? And what happened, you can find out if they were there. They would have left tons of freaking trash everywhere.
Trash? And you expect trash to hang around for 3,000 years in the desert?
What is a midden? What is a midden in archaeology? What is a midden?
I don't have the faintest idea what a midden
It's a
is.
trash pit, and pretty much every ancient civilization had them at the time. We'd be able to find them. I worked at an archaeology site in freaking Arizona. They had a midden, and from that we were able to tell what they ate, when they ate it, period.
Great. How many years ago was that?
700 years ago.
Fine. Now, just multiply that by 4 plus,
Wait.
and you've got an incredible...
Okay. We've got the number here. How many? 600,000. That's men. That's insane. Like, there's no way nobody would have noticed that 600,000 people were wandering in one of the most highly populated places on the planet.
Desert?
No, the Nile Delta.
Sir, your hyperskepticism is not consistent across the study of ancient history. If you apply the type of unrealistically stringent tests to the writings of Herodotus, the Greek historian, to the writings of the Roman historians, you've just dismissed Alexander the Great with one big sweep of the arm.
Herodotus wasn't claiming that a miracle from God happened. Like, seriously, like magic. Like parting of the Red Sea, bread raining from the sky. Herodotus never mentioned anything like that. So it's a lot more substantially believable.
Thanks for your honesty. Now we're getting to the real issue, which has nothing to do with history. It has to do with a philosophical presupposition, which is there a supernatural God who performs miracles, or is there no supernatural God who performs miracles? And obviously, if there's no supernatural God, then miracles are impossible. You're right. But let's be honest, it's not an issue of history, it's an issue of philosophy. Is there a supernatural God or not? Now, what do you think?
No.
Okay, why do you think there's no God?
Because miracles are nonsense.
Because miracles are nonsense.
And I believe in the laws of physics.
Yeah?
But
No, sir, let him speak. You got the floor, go ahead.
I believe in the laws of physics,
Right.
and you can't move water for 600,000 people to go through.
Okay.
You can't move water like that.
Good.
Or bread is not gonna magically rain from the sky.
Good. Very good.
What causes that? How does your God create miracles? What causes that?
You bet.
I find it difficult to say that Christianity is more necessarily reliable. It is the most reliable option, when every single option will teach roughly the same ideals and ethics.
Sir, Muhammad died and stayed dead. Siddhartha Gautama Buddha died and stayed dead. Jesus died, 3 days later, rose from the dead. Does that not set him apart as unique, as different?
No, because Odin died and came back.
Who?
Odin.
Really?
Yes.
That's mythology, sir. And mythology can communicate truth. But if you're a history major, you better be honest. You better acknowledge that literary style is mythology. The literary style of the Gospels is not mythology. It's a clear claim. We saw him die on a cross. Joseph of Arimathea, very well-known guy of that day, great politician, buried him in his tomb. We dispersed in disillusionment. Nobody was a true believer. We thought the case was over. 3 days later, he appeared to some people who were not even allowed to testify in court because the sexism was so bad. They were women. So the first eyewitnesses of the resurrected Christ were women. Not a good way to pile up credibility if you're trying to foist a fable on society.
Well, hold on. Because it is mythology. In popular culture now that paganism has, for the most part, died off, it is considered mythology.
The literary style of those stories is mythology. It's not reading like, at this time, in this place, with these people around, Odin said this and did that. It's the same with Isis and Iris and Horus in Egyptian literature. It is not historical claims. And it's same with Bhagavad Gita in the Upanishads of Hinduism. It's using myth to communicate truth. Jesus Christ is totally different. Jesus Christ and the Gospels are not, here's a neat mythology, and from this mythology, here's the truth I want you to get. It's not that. It's, he really lived, really healed people, really taught, Sermon on the Mount, really died on a cross, spear jammed into his side, watery serum separate from clotted blood, flowed from his side, taken off the cross, put in a tomb, stone rolled in front, disciples dispersed in disillusionment. 3 days later, he starts appearing risen from the dead, and for over a period of 40 days, he appears to over 5 500 people who see him at different times in different places risen from the dead. Sir, that is different literary style, genre.
Okay. I get what you're saying now. So the distinction would be like specific dates and specific eyewitness accounts, right? Would that be?
Very important.
Okay, so in the War of the Three Brothers in the Vedas, when Shiva assisted Indians going to Sri Lanka to attack, the land bridge was formed 8,000 years ago, which is still in place today. A specific geographical account of the Sri Lankan bridge, which Hinduism can get back to roughly teaching the same morals.
Yeah.
So, back to my question, how would it be more reliable?
Because when you read Hinduism, the Vedas and Upanishads, if you walk away saying those are very good historical documents, you don't know. You're not an historian. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's historical, but
Good.
I would say that
you
it
know
would
that.
attempt to make a historical claim, but I wouldn't say it's historical. I would
It's
not use
an
that.
attempt to make an historical claim.
There's
It's not
specific
the point of
dates.
Hinduism.
There's specific dates in it.
Yes, but that's clearly within the literary style of mythology. I mean, it's clear. For instance, if I were to say to you, the Book of Revelation, gosh, it's got a beast with 9 heads. Dude, that's an historical event. No, time out, sir. The Book of Revelation is not historical narrative. The Book of Revelation is apocalyptic literature. It has nothing to do with historical narrative. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, historical narrative. Book of Revelation, no, sir. Not history, apocalyptic literature. The Book of Psalms, history, no, ma'am. No, sir. Poetry, clear hymnology, clear poetry, clear songs of praise. Zippo to do with history. Okay? Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, clearly. Most excellent Theophilus, Luke begins his gospel. I have written a careful account of all the events surrounding Jesus so that you may know the reason for your belief. Clearly historical narrative. Eyewitness reportage. Okay, now why are you agnostic?
Generally because I believe that there is probably something, whether that's singular being, hundreds of thousands of beings, something guiding us more than just random probability. Though I would probably say that that thing would be closer to random probability than any given god or gods.
Okay. Now the reason I have moved on from that position is because I've really enjoyed this conversation with you. You're intelligent, you're articulate, and I cannot believe that your reason comes from the irrational.
Okay, why is that?
Because in all of my observation of life, reason does not come from non-reason, reason comes from reason. 100 times out of 100. You see, hear something rational, you know there's a rational mind that's saying it. Okay? So, is it more reasonable for me to think your ability to reason and articulate as beautifully as you have comes from non-reason? Or is it more reasonable for me to believe that your ability to reason and articulate comes from a rational being, creator God of some type, or gods?
To say that, I feel like we have to grant that math would be irrational, because probability essentially boils down to math, right? So like the probability of any given piece of bacteria evolving to the next piece is simply just a math problem, right? Just probability. How many X times can we get before X mutation occurs?
Okay, fine. I understand. Here's why I disagree.
Okay.
Just met this guy. All right, I don't know his name. I don't know anything. I cannot treat him as a mathematical formula. I cannot treat his decisions as a mathematical formula. Why? Because he's a person. He's not a mathematical formula. So I have to have different tests other than mathematics to determine whether we should build a friendship or not. I will look for things like integrity, honesty, the ability to care, the ability to be empathetic, the ability to make a commitment. When he says, Cliff, I'll meet you at 5 o'clock down at the restaurant, he's there. He takes me seriously. I take him seriously. We begin to share our lives. We begin to open up. He tells me about some of his pain and hurt. I tell him about some of my pain and hurt. And we encourage each other. We build each other up. See, sir, that's a relationship. Has nothing to do with mathematics, has nothing to do with quantum physics, it has nothing to do with science. It has to do with trusting a person, Well, let me share with you why I'm so firm on this. Very wealthy scientist, very good scientist, made a lot of money. Had a family, he loved his science and he loved his money. One day, his adult children began going off the rails. He pleaded with his sons, don't go down this path, you're going to destroy your life. His sons ignored him. He's sitting back at home and he's hurting so badly over the decisions his irresponsible sons are making. And then all of a sudden he starts asking, what's more important, my relationship with my sons or science? What's more important, my relationship with my boys or my bank account? And all of a sudden he began to realize what's far more important to me is my relationship with my boys. I've made a mistake. All life long, I've been emphasizing science, career, making a bucket load of money. The mistake I've made is I haven't woken up and realized what on earth is the most important thing to me in life. By far the most important thing to me in life is my sons, my boys. And they're self-destructive. They're exploding their lives. And I can't change them.